Toastmasters, honored guests. I too love America, but I also appreciate a lot of what Mexico has shown us over the years. They've shown us and they've been an example of humanitarian rights for the last 200, 300, 400 years. The thing I love the most about Mexico are their people. Because in the United States, when we had African slaves were able to go, and if they were lucky enough to escape, their slave owners, and lucky enough to cross the Mexican border, the Mexican government would give them immunity. The Mexican people themselves took in these slaves, fed them, housed them, clothed them. And really, I mean, who does that? Nobody really does that. There's no gain there. There's no political gain. There's no financial gain. It's just basically being great people. And it's a shame how you see some of the Mexican-American and African-American community the way they're battling it out right now. It's actually quite sad when they have this beautiful history. So, was it really a good choice for Mexico to give the slaves immunity? It was actually the worst thing they did in the history of Mexico in a loss of land type of way. The first piece of land that Mexico had lost in the United States was Texas. I think everybody heard about the Alamo, very famous battle. It happened in 1836. But there was a lot of tension between Mexico and the United States before that. In 1820, the slave owners in the South knew that slavery was becoming a very unpopular thing in the United States. So they wanted to move their slave operations to Texas. And at that time, the Mexican government had granted them land grants. And so many of these southern slave owners had moved into Texas that it alarmed the Mexican government, where in 10 years, in 1830, they said, no more. No more of you can come. This is getting out of control. You're too violent to the slaves. We're not condoning this. And 4 years after they closed their border to the United States, they abolished slavery in Mexico. They were celebrating, I'm sure a lot of the slaves were celebrating, wanted to get down to Mexico, get their freedom. But the people that weren't celebrating were Davy Crockett and his other slave owner friends that didn't like that slavery is abolished and their business is essentially done. So with the help of the South and the southern slave owners, they battled the Mexican government and they won. They won Texas. But the United States at that point, they weren't done. They wanted more. And so they instigated a war 10 years after the Alamo because they wanted more land. And meanwhile, they sent representative after representative year after year to Mexico saying, hey, give us back our slaves. This is our property. You keeping our property constitutes war. And Mexico said, screw you. We're not giving you the slaves. Back to the barbarian, violent slave owners. It would be like turning a chicken back to the fox. And again, that was one of the biggest mistakes they made for a land type of deal. So that war was a very famous war. It was the U.S.-Mexican War. It lasted for 2 years, and at the end of it, the United States captured the capital of Mexico, which was Mexico City. And essentially, at that time, they owned Mexico. So they went up to the Mexican government and said, hey, we just won this war. We have this agreement. We think it looks pretty good on the table. We'd like to take California, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, and New Mexico. We think it's a pretty good deal. What do you think? And the Mexican government diplomatically thought about it and said, okay. And so at that time, the border physically moved like 2.6 million square miles, not acres, square miles. And there were thousands of these Mexican people on this land. Thousands, hundreds of thousands. And I find it interesting now that we're having these issues in this country in Arizona with some of Arizona's anti-immigrant policies. And we're trying to kick a lot of the so-called Hispanic, illegal immigrant-looking people out of the state, which is a serious issue. So Arizona, they had to address this issue. The governor of Arizona, Jan Brewer, had a press conference. And a reporter asked her, he said, Jan, how is the Arizona law enforcement agencies effectively determining what an illegal immigrant looks like? And Jan said, and I quote, I don't know, but we're in the process of finding that out. End of quote. Now, in 2010, in the United States of America, a governor announcing that they're in the process of determining how they're going to racially profile a specific group of people is just beyond me. I don't know how they're going to do this. I kind of create images in my mind on how they're going to do this. Are they going to get a picture of a Hispanic immigrant-looking person and put it in all their police cars and police stations and go, hey, if you see this type of looking person, get them? Or would it be easier to just have all the Mexican Americans that have legal papers to come into the police department? And maybe we can put a little gold star on their chest to identify them. So this is a major, major issue that we have in front of us. And I think it's similar to what and how societies have been singled out in the past. We're Americans. We can't let this happen. American and being American is all about helping the people that this system most affects in this world, and especially in this country. So if any one of us thinks that our little civil liberties cannot be taken away at any time, I suggest you guys please Google Japanese Americans 1942. Thank you.